You're listening to Parents You've Got This, the expert guide to parenthood, the complete guide to fertility, pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood. This podcast is proudly supported by Mistela, a natural origin skincare for babies and children, recommended by healthcare professionals. Mistela by Parents' Side since 1950.
If you're about to go travelling with your little one, you're in for a treat. We have our sleep expert, Dr Laura Conway from Infant Sleep Australia, back in the chair today to give her tips and tricks around travel and sleep.
Dr Laura Conway and Dr Fallon Cook are from Infant Sleep Australia, and they have devised the SOMBEL program. They have both got PhDs in childhood development and sleep, and they work with families to make sure that they have the very best sleep programs that work correctly for them. All their information is evidence-based and they're the absolute best of the best. We are really, really thrilled to have Laura Conway here with us today. Thank you, Laura, for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, the thought of going on holiday is such a lovely thought, but then when you think about it, more than just the idea of, the idyllic being on the beach, and you think about your little one and you think about the sleep schedule, you think about all their equipment, you think about their comforters, you think there's a big long list for parents of considerations when it comes to travelling with a little person, and it can be quite overwhelming and stressful thinking about sleep. So we're going to dive into it today, and we're going to talk all about the actual essentials and what we need to know to really prepare ourselves for any sort of travel with our little person. So thank you. Now, equipment to start with, cots, comforters, what sort of equipment do we need to think about when we're travelling with our little one?
Yeah, so what we really want to be doing is replicating the bedroom environment as much as possible. So whatever equipment you generally use at bedtime is the equipment that you want to take with you. Of course, you won't be able to take the cot or the toddler bed, but you will be able to take a porta cot. If your child sleeps in a bed, then think about taking the sheets off the bed so that you can use those for the bed at the place that you're going to. Making sure that if your child uses a dummy or pacifier, you buy lots of those in case the destination you go to doesn't have the brand that your child loves. Make sure you have more than one comforter in case you lose one. And think about taking if you use a white noise machine, take that with you, sleep sacks, bottles, if there's a favourite book, for example, that they have at bedtime. Make sure that you take all of those things with you so that you can follow the same bedtime routine at your destination.
And once you get there, are you trying to emulate your sleep schedule at home, or do you just go with the flow?
As much as it would be great to go with the flow, because that's what a lot of us like to do prior to having children, what we know is that sleep loves structure, and generally the whole family is going to function much better if everybody is well rested. And one of the best ways to ensure everyone is well rested is to, within reason, stick to a similar schedule whilst you're away that you do have when you're at home. So if your child has 3 naps a day, you would be thinking about giving them the same 3 naps a day. Think about having a similar-ish bedtime. It might be a little bit later if you're going out for dinner, but really we want it within about an hour of the normal bedtime, and then having a set wake-up time in the morning.
So time zones really have a big impact on us as adults, but even more so as little ones. How do you go about keeping the same sleep schedule if you're changing time zones?
Yeah, so when we're experiencing jet lag, what we're experiencing is a disconnect between our internal body clock and the social time. So there's a bit of what's called a temporal smear, where all the cells in your body are just out of whack. It feels really uncomfortable. So generally we know that jet lag will pass over a number of days. Things that we can do to improve it in terms of our children's schedule is thinking about on the plane. When you are going to be landing in your destination, think about if you're landing in the morning or the afternoon. If you're landing in the morning, then think about encouraging your little one to have 5 or 6 hours worth of sleep in the last part of the plane journey, so that then on landing you can get on with your day. If you're arriving at midday or onwards, then you think about having your little one awake for the last few hours of the flight, so that then when you arrive in your destination, there's more chance of them building their sleep pressure so that they have their big sleep that night rather than on arriving.
That's great advice, because it can be very overwhelming and very stressful trying to plan it out. And what happens if that doesn't go to plan, Laura? So your little one is either so bone tired that they can't possibly keep their eyes open, or the opposite, they're absolutely wide and up for a party.
Yeah.
Any suggestions around how to handle either of those?
Yeah, so it may be on the first day in your destination that your child needs to have one more nap. That's a good rule of thumb than they normally have. So if your child normally has 3 naps, you might be thinking about introducing a 4th nap, just to help them through until bedtime. Other things you can think about are using the sun. The sun is your friend. So getting them out in the morning sun in the new destination to help resetting that body clock. If you're trying to keep your little one awake for a bit longer at night time, you'd be thinking about taking them out at dusk, so that the blue light at dusk just helps delay their circadian rhythm, so that they generally aren't tired until a little bit later.
What about sleeping arrangements? This can be really tricky. You know, they might have their own room at home and their own cot and their own settings, and suddenly you're in a hotel room and they're right next to you and they can see you and they can't understand why they can't hop in with you.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Yeah, so I'll be thinking about trying to replicate that bedroom environment from home as much as possible, even when you're all in the same room together. So if your child has a white noise machine, bring that with you. Bring the same sleep sacks from home so that they're sleeping in the same bedclothes. Bring the same sheets from home as well so that it smells like home. Follow the same bedtime routine so that even though they're in a new place, they realise that these same things are happening in the same order at bedtime. Those are their sleep cues. So we try and keep as many things constant as we can when there's lots of big changes around. If your child is standing up in the portico or standing up in their bed and wanting to come and join you, think about whether there's any way you can put in a kind of visual barrier for them. So some parents might put their suitcases so that the child can't see through the suitcases over to where mum and dad are. Some might use a towel rail, for example, just to try to separate the room a little bit, so that your child can, or their child can, actually calm down and go to sleep rather than trying to engage with you at that time.
I remember spending a lot of time with my husband in the bathroom, just to put our little one down, and then you'd hide out in the bathroom until they'd gone to sleep and think, what are we doing? This is crazy.
Also a very good idea. If your baby is used to going to sleep without you being there in the room, then that is something that some parents will do. You have to just be pragmatic in these situations.
That's right. And so what about car travel? This is a funny one because, you know, some little ones love to sleep in the car and some don't. So a similar thing in terms of arrival and departure. But how would you suggest if you're going on a road trip? Do you structure it around sleep time, or do you just go when it's convenient for your family? How does it work?
General rule of thumb, for littler babies, we need to be mindful of their head position and neck position in car seats. Very small babies don't have great muscle tone yet, don't have very strong muscles, so we really need to be having regular checks that their breathing is still okay. So you need to factor in breaks during the car journey so that you can give them some opportunity to be out of the car seat. Yes. If you've got older children, or when you have older children, then it's really up to you to determine how you feel they're going to respond. So some parents find that their toddlers do not fall asleep in the car and actually really enjoy being in the car seat, listening to audiobooks, playing games, I Spy, and just chatting to their parents. Other families have children that just fall asleep as soon as they sniff the car seat, and then you'd be looking at timing any big road trips around nap times or at the start of the night, so you can try and get as many hours in before, so that they have their a lot of their sleep in the evening in the car.
Yeah, my little ones just couldn't keep their eyes open. I'd almost be watching them and just see the little eyes like, no. Stay awake, wiggles on lap.
Yeah, there are some great songs I think that you can play in the car. I think the one's called the Happy Song, which keeps apparently keeps children awake. So yeah, look those up.
Laura, what are your top tips for travel and sleep?
So my first tip is to, as much as possible, keep a daily rhythm that is similar to what you use at home. My second tip is to take all of the paraphernalia that you possibly can to your destination so that you can replicate that bedroom environment. So thinking white noise machines, dummies, comforters, sleep suits. If you are staying in a hotel, really important that you do a safety check to make sure that there's not any mischief that your child could get up to, that there's no cleaning products or anything around that wouldn't ordinarily be in their sleep space. Check for cords to make sure that they can't pull anything down on themselves. And most importantly, take lots of photos and enjoy yourselves.
That's beautiful advice, Laura. What about from a pressure perspective with sleep? When we're travelling, sometimes we might be travelling with family members or with friends, and parenting under the eyes of others can be quite challenging at times.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for how to manage perhaps judgments around, how you actually go about getting your little one to sleep, or how much they sleep, or their own sleep schedule?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Everyone's got something to say about infant and toddler sleep. So I think parents today are really quite used to feeling judged all of the time. And it does intensify when they're with family members or friends in close proximity. So I think it can be really helpful to think that you can't control other people around you, but you can control your own responses and reactions. So telling yourself that it's coming from a good place in all likelihood. If you have your mum or your mother-in-law or somebody else telling you how things were done in their day, just think, I know it's coming from a good place. But think about setting some healthy boundaries where you might say to them, yeah, that's really interesting. All children and babies are different, and I know my child best, and this is the one thing that works well for them. Thank you very much. Also thinking about giving the person who has a lot of advice to give you a task or activity, which might be washing the bottles or preparing the bottles, or doing a bedtime story before you take your little one into the bedroom, so that they feel like they're involved and that they've been listened to, but then you're firmly saying, okay, now it's on to the bedtime routine, which is just something that we do with our little one.
Well, Laura, it's always so wonderful to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing all your tips and tricks with us today.
That's a pleasure.
A huge thanks to Mistela for sponsoring this episode. When we become parents, we welcome any tips and tricks that can make our lives easier. Mistela's baby massage oil is perfect for bonding time with your little one, and for a baby massage to soothe, moisturise and help calm and prepare your baby for sleep. Mistela is our family's favourite. You've been listening to the Expert Guide to Parenthood podcast, and never forget, you've got this.
Join a Parents You've Got This masterclass today to be prepared, excited and educated for pregnancy, birth, baby and parenthood. Visit www.parentsyou'vegotthis.com.au and sign up for a masterclass today.
The information provided in this podcast is general in nature and is intended to support, not replace, a discussion with your doctor or healthcare professional. Parents You've Got This take no responsibility for any medical decisions made by individuals based on the information provided in this podcast.